Well, I often got asked when I was in uniform and indeed when I was a director of the CIA, what's your leadership style, General? And I would respond by saying that I'll tell you what my leadership style is if you'll tell me what style is required to bring the best out in each of those who reports directly to me and in the organization collectively. Is I think you have to have a variety of different leadership styles. I think they have to evolve over the years, that what works as a rompin' stompin' airborne ranger infantry platoon leader may not be the same leadership style that is particularly inspirational when you're leading a large organization that now includes women and men, young and old, of a variety of backgrounds, ethnic groups, sectarian preferences, and everything else. So again, one has to have a variety of leadership styles. You may need a pat on the back once a year. I might need a pat on the back once an hour. And whatever it is that's required to bring the best out each individual, to help each individual be all that he or she can be, that's what you're trying to achieve as a leader, and that's the style that you're trying to employ as you are leading an organization at any level, but certainly at the strategic level in particular. Well, it's interesting because different people have said that Petraeus is like this, and others said, gosh, no, he was like that. And the truth was I could be both. One was somebody who could drill details with the best of them, just drive a policy, really almost impose your will on an organization if it's not clear that that organization is getting it. And you have to do some of that. There have to be areas, there inevitably will be areas where folks aren't completely getting it, where it's not clear that they've absolutely recognized the imperative of taking certain actions with the alacrity that's called for in a situation. And in those cases, you are going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And we did this, for example, in great detail into the Iraqi Security Force effort, into certain of the other activities that we undertook, again, to get basic services going again in Iraq. I realized the only way to get people to focus on this is to have metrics for it. And so we created metrics, again, for the amount of electricity produced on a given day, and then figure out how can you do that better. Oil production, pipelines, bridges blown up, you name it. You focus on the details, and people realize that you're not going to stop that. And if they ever want to get you off their back, that they're going to have to fix what it is. I mean, there was one that became a metaphor for this. It was called Tower 57. And I kept emphasizing initially gently, suggestively, that we really needed to get these towers back up. And there was this particularly important one south of Baghdad, Tower 57. And this kept on, and Tower 57 was still on its side. And I'd fly over it every now and then when we were transiting that area. And after a while, I started deliberately going over it. And finally, ultimately, in one of the daily battlefield update and analyses, I had a picture of Tower 57, which I'd taken myself. We made a PowerPoint slide of it. And we said, if I don't see the division commander on top of Tower 57 in the next photo, then we may have to consider some leadership changes here. He was actually a terrific division commander, would ask an enormous amount of him. But he actually sent me an email that night that said, hey, sir, got it. Tower 57, Wilco, will comply. On the other hand, there is another Petraeus, and this is a guy who develops confidence in key individuals and who says, hey, look, I'm going to chart the left and right limits for this azimuth. I want you to get on down the road. You just move out. Exercise initiative. Again, in the absence of guidance or orders, figure out what they should have been and execute aggressively. And if you have a chance, come up on the net, tell me how you're doing. If you don't worry about it. I'll come out and see how you're doing. But as long as you're between those left and right limits, just keep driving on. Don't wait. Just exercise initiative. And so that trying to promote, again, a culture which not only promotes but even rewards the exercise of initiative is very, very important, particularly in a counterinsurgency effort, which is all about small unit activities, operationalizing big ideas in the actions that they're taking outside the wire under Kevlar and body armor on a daily basis. And I'd even try to cut through the chain of command to just get a sense for what was going on. I would give my email address to company commanders with whom I met and challenge them. I'd say, if you're ever so frustrated with something, this is about life and death. You have a responsibility to your young men and women who are fighting to email me. You might info everybody in the chain of command and make sure that's done appropriately. But if it's something on which there's not being action taken in accordance with what you think is right, you owe it to your troopers to get that to me. I'd take junior officers running. There were 2 days a week when we would try to fence time to go for a run around this big compound in which we had our hooch. And so we'd get majors over, company commanders. And one time the major told me, he said, "Hey, sir, we got this particular development in our area. There's one bad guy has already all of a sudden decided that he wants to oppose Al-Qaeda and he wants our support, but folks are really nervous about it." And on the spot, I said, "You support him, you get after it. I'll take care of the chain of command between you and me and the Iraqi leadership, but you go back, tell your battalion commander, don't let our bureaucracy stand in the way of supporting this individual. You put him in the backs of your your fighting vehicles, you give him ammunition, you give him supplies, but help him. And again, I'll make sure I got your back." Well, I think, again, if you go back to the tasks of strategic leaders, of developing big ideas, communicating them, overseeing their implementation, and determining how they need to be refined, changed, overhauled, if you work your way through that, I think that you see that you want to develop a certain intellectual inquiry, ability to communicate in writing and verbally, to be able to think through complex issues, to bring people into this, to engage them, to inspire them, to guide them in a process of developing the right approach, the right big ideas, the right strategy, help them understand the kinds of structures that need to be employed to oversee the implementation of the big ideas, to appreciate the need for a personal battle rhythm, an organizational battle rhythm, and so forth, the need to see it for yourself on the ground, but also to not just spend all day out there, because, again, the strategic leader has to perform a lot of other tasks that may not be as much fun, but have to do with care and feeding of a coalition, of one's political as well as military hierarchy, congressional leaders, host nation leaders, populations at home, populations in the host nation, and on and on. So what is it that does create that kind of individual? And certainly it is certain types of education over the years. Obviously that you must be grounded as a military professional, must understand that. That's job one. If an individual can't oversee a combat operation, then the fact that he or she may be a wonderfully congenial, diplomatic, thoughtful individual is irrelevant. The basics must be present. But then these other elements have to be present as well. And I think we want to give developing leaders what you might term out of your intellectual comfort zone experiences. They should be encouraged to travel, to see other cultures, to experience individuals who have a different perspective, who come at the world from a different vantage point, who see reality through a different prism, if you will. For me, graduate school, civilian graduate school, was a hugely developing experience. It not only improved, I'd like to think, the ability to communicate, to analyze, to assess, to write, to speak. It also imparted a rigor in some of the analytical processes that are necessary. It helped me develop knowledge of techniques, of some of those associated with operations research, systems analysis, regression analysis, all these tools, statistical analysis, a basic knowledge of economics and political philosophy, which of all things turned out to be very useful as we were seeking the way forward in the early days in Iraq. But above all, again, a sense of awareness that there are seriously bright people out there that don't see the world the same way we do, and why they don't, why they may not, why they may have different assumptions about everything, starting with the so-called state of nature, to use a Hobbesian term. This, I think, is very, very important. And again, as I said, it comes back to these developing experiences, which include education, which certainly include the assignments, professional assignments. Again, one has to be grounded in the unit tactics and operations, has to be a competent commander at all the levels leading up to the strategic level, but ideally has had a wider aperture as well. Again, has had some of these other experiences, has had the vantage point assignments that I was privileged to have, aide to a service chief, military assistant to the NATO commander, executive officer for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and so forth. I mean, these are very, very wonderful development experiences and professional experiences. So I think all of that together is what produces somebody, I think, who can perform these four very important tasks that I've outlined and do them well.